I just want to say a quick thank you to my subscriber Chloe and Ava's Monstrosity for inspiring this video, because it was actually their idea that kind of got me onto this. So every single boss, if you actually think about what a boss or an enemy is, it's ultimately an avatar and attacks, right? That's all it is. It's ultimately just the attacks, right? And so when you interact with an enemy, your interaction with the enemy, especially if you are choosing to go down the dodging route, right? Because if you compare, let's say, dodging with blocking, blocking just requires you to hold one button, dodging actually requires you to time and evade the attacks, and you're then rewarded by a significantly higher level of stamina consumption, the ability to avoid elemental damage that would pass through a physically defensive shield. There's a whole bunch of rewards that the game gives you for actually avoiding the attacks rather than just blocking them. And it's obviously more mechanically demanding, right? So just as a basic thing, if we are going down the route of dodging, because we understand that without dodging, your actual interaction with each attack goes from needing to understand the timing of that attack to not understanding the timing of that attack. Clearly you're not actually interacting with that attack properly if you're not having to understand it and the way that it works. If we understand that interacting with a boss is ultimately just interacting with and understanding its attacks. So number one, let's just take blocking out of it entirely. It has to be timing related, which is why parrying and dodging are the two effective ways that are legitimate of dealing with an incoming attack, right? So once you've got that down, well, what kind of attacks does a boss have? Well, they've got short range attacks, medium range attacks, and long range attacks. So in order for you to actually interact with the boss effectively and to experience all of its attacks, you need to sometimes be at long range, sometimes be at medium range, and sometimes be at close range. If you aren't using a melee weapon, and therefore you never need to be close range to be able to hit them, then you put yourself in a situation where you never need to trigger the close range attack animations, which means you're missing about a third of the move pool. Similarly, if you've got a good long range weapon that allows you to cast magic from afar, well, a lot of the time you don't even really need to trigger the short or the medium term attacks. And bearing in mind the long term attacks by definition have to travel distance to get to you, whether it's a projectile or the enemy itself, you have so much more time on the long range attacks that sure, there might be some timing even if you decide, well, I am dodging even though I'm a mage or whatever. But it's like, sure, but your time window management is again mechanically completely different to somebody that is dealing with even the person that's at mid-range and then a surprise long-range attack comes out and you're like, oh, and you have to deal with that. There's some sort of reaction going on. If you limit their move pool and you control the RNG you're getting and you essentially take away the most dangerous, fastest and most demanding set of their attacks, then trying to pretend that that is the equivalent to requiring yourself to be close enough to hit them with something physically, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just, you're not even interacting with the same boss, right? So yeah, I mean, long-range attacks, I don't even believe anyone actually believes that it's not so much easier, that it's completely a different experience. I mean, of course it is, right? And so then, the only other ways of making the game ridiculously overpowered is, well, you can either put your health through the roof. When I say through the roof, I genuinely mean anything over like 25. Like at the moment I'm in endgame with Elden Ring. I've got reasonably good armor on, but not the most defensive armor in the game. I've got 20 Vigor with a talisman that gives me extra 5 points of Vigor, but then also increases the damage taken. It's the Ratatoskr Sword Seal, which I know doesn't increase the damage taken by a huge amount, but my effective Vigor is still less than 25. And I am not getting one-shot by the endgame bosses. Like, obviously the super heavy attacks do kill me, but are you really trying to justify that when you see a giant, like, slam their shield down, that you're not just meant to die in one. When you have, like, that beam of fire that was just flown at me there, the black flame from Sister Freide, like, that's obviously, it's got a long wind up, that's got a long wind up, that's meant to kill you in one. Like, as look now, if you watch there, that's got a long wind up, boom. If you get hit by the initial explosion or the thing that bursts out, that meant to kill you in one. That's probably not meant to kill you in one because it had a quick fire out. Those light slashes, not meant to kill you in one. Look, you can very clearly see. But at the same time, if you're in a situation where you can take 3 of the light slashes in a row and you've just been hit by a full combo, or if you can take a massive, massive smash from, you know, an enemy twice your size wielding a great sword bigger than your body, it's like, come on. Of course you're not meant to survive that. And if you can survive it, then it doesn't actually require you to interact with those attacks properly, because those attacks are clearly meant to take you out of the game, right? So having a really high Vigor stat isn't as bad, because a lot of the really, really powerful attacks will even destroy you through 40. But not many of them, if we're honest. Like, I've seen people survive crazy stuff in some clips with even like 35 Vigor. It's just like, what is going on? I actually put my Vigor up to 30 while I was playing Elden Ring, decided it was too high and had to pull it down 5 points. Because it was just trivializing every encounter, because I was just allowed to make so many more mistakes. Similarly, avoiding mistakes can be done by just making your weapons too overpowered. If you have weapons that kill the enemy so much faster than the normal weapons do, well, then the period of time that you need to sustain your concentration and your effective play for is significantly cut down, which also trivializes it and makes it easier. So I'm not saying that you can't do these things. I'm not saying that you can't cheese the game. No one's telling you you can't do it. It's just, you need to be honest with yourself that you're interacting with an objectively different product, and that obviously you're not getting as much out of the game, and that what you seem to hear from the players that do force themselves through the frustration and do hold themselves to the standard is that they actually gain something not just from that experience, but it actually gives them something personal, on a personal level, where they're that little bit better at controlling themselves, at motivating themselves, at not getting frustrated. It actually gives you something, because your brain doesn't care that it's a game. You just practice self-control for however long you played the game for, because it's frustrating as hell. So yeah, the experience isn't looking at the characters. It's not looking at the world. These things are beautiful and they're fantastic artistically and provide an amazing backdrop. But what this really is an opportunity to interact with the part of you that wants to give up on things, and train yourself not to in a safe environment where if you get it wrong, it doesn't matter and you can try 1,000 more times. And the fact that you get to do it in a way that ultimately produces something that you will be proud of and that was hard and required the same level of self-management and self-mastery that achievement of pretty much anything else significant does. You'll actually have done it, and it will mean something to you. And games very rarely provide you with that experience. It's very, very rare that you can get that anything other than in a high-stakes situation where if you get things wrong, you're traumatized and emotionally damaged for life. So thank God Miyazaki is a genius and understands how to give us a chance to challenge ourselves to be more than what we normally are. Don't miss out on that.